you know that?
Mm-hmm.
You did?
Mm-hmm.
How'd you know that?
Does it matter?
Well, most people don't know that, okay? So, when I started studying David Wilcock, the thing that triggered me was, this was my first experience of all this ideas that I've been talking about, was he was the spitting image of Edgar Cayce.
Mm-hmm.
His father looked like Edgar Cayce's father.
Mm-hmm.
His friend looked like Edgar Cayce's wife.
Mm-hmm.
What happens is when you die, this matrix, your soul matrix, memorizes your DNA.
Mm-hmm.
And so when it comes into the new body, it programs the new DNA with the DNA of the past lifetime. Mm-hmm. So for example, I usually have big pictures. There's Edgar Cayce, David Wilcock.
Mm-hmm.
This is Edgar Cayce's father, David's father. This was David's friend. That's Edgar Cayce's wife. Okay? And so what happened was, I was busy writing this book for 2 years, and it was still in process. And I was kind of blowing my mind on, oh my God, this is real. There were so many things tying him to Edgar Cayce. One of them was that he had this voice talking to him in his dreams, and this voice told him to go to Virginia Beach, which is where the Edgar Cayce Center was. Well, he went to Virginia Beach. That's when he found out he looked like Edgar Cayce. And then people started, he asked his voice, why do I look like Edgar Cayce? And his voice said, because you were Edgar Cayce. And if you study Edgar Cayce, you'll see all the parallels. But this lifetime, if you're going to do your highest purpose, you're not going to do past life readings and health readings. You're going to explain to your planet the shift that's going on. And David then started studying Edgar Cayce. He found out that Edgar Cayce predicted in his own readings that he would return in 1998, live in Virginia Beach, and may be a liberator of the world, okay? Right now, David is on YouTube. His videos have gotten like 500,000 hits, and he's influencing people all over the place. The book was a help. But he doesn't like being Edgar Cayce. He'd rather be what he calls an intuitive scientist. And I think, I'm not going to speak for him, but I'll say what I think. I think it's a huge responsibility to have voices talking to you. And what if I make a mistake? People tend to give up their power to that kind of stuff. They either snub it entirely, or they say, okay, we'll follow. And either one is the right approach. And so what happened to me was, while I was writing the book in 2002, I had a new girlfriend. And we were taking a drive from Los Angeles to Portland, Oregon. And we were in Northern California, and it was pouring rain. And we did a prayer of protection. I did a prayer of protection. And at the end of the prayer, like a joke, I looked up and said, does anybody want to talk to me? And she answered and said, we're here. What are your questions? And I thought she was joking because she knew I was writing the book. So I asked some questions, and she starts answering, and it doesn't sound like her. And she says, that's the strangest thing that ever happened. Well, 3 days later, we arrived in Portland. We're staying at a hotel. And we try it again. I take a tape recorder out. And I said, does anybody want to talk to me? And she answers and says, we're here. And I asked the question. I said, how come my girlfriend can do this? And they said, your girlfriend's from another dimension. She came into this realm to bring these messages forth. And then I said, how do I know she's not crazy? And you're just a figment of her craziness. Can you guys predict a newspaper headline? And they said, watch for this headline in 2 weeks. And 2 weeks later, there was the headline.
Which was?
I'm not going to take the time to tell you. Go to my website, messageaday.net, or Conversations with My Girlfriend. You can read it. But there was a headline that she'd predicted. And so for the next 6 months, she would interrupt whatever I was doing and say, those guys want to talk to you again. I would take the tape recorder out, record them, and finally, what happened was I get a call from my brother-in-law, tells me my sister is going in the hospital and they don't think she's going to make it. So I asked this voice, I said, can you help my sister? And they said they could. She survives this critical cancer operation, and I thought it was coincidence. Until a few weeks later, she has to go in for tests. And the nurse said, there's no cancer, but there's something wrong with your test. Because your lupus disappeared, and lupus never disappears. And so they tested her again and again, no lupus. So now I go back to this voice, and I said, how did you do that? And they said, it was like putting a filter in her blood and taking the lupus out. Well, now I know I've got something pretty amazing on my hands. Mm-hmm. The voice, during this period of asking them questions, I was asking questions about all the things that were in my book. Now, the story of the reincarnation of Edgar Cayce is interesting, but what's really interesting is this voice that's talking through David Wilcock and was explaining things like the shift we're in, how the universe works, what's actually happening, what the significance in 2012 is, but they're explaining it in a way that a human could never come up with the stuff. Mm-hmm. And now I have this voice talking to me through my girlfriend, and I'm cross-referencing everything that's in the book. And she is giving exactly the same answers as were in the book. And she is freaking out over it. She is like going through panic attacks. She's scared. In September of 2002, she left me. And I mourned for about 4 weeks. And then I called my old friend up and I said, I'm really suffering. Would you consider coming over and spending the night? So she did. In the middle of the night, she woke me up and said, get the tape recorder out. And they started coming through her. I didn't believe it at first. I thought she was jealous. I thought she was making it up. But they said that was the same intelligence. And they said, ask us questions and you decide. So this has been going on now for 7 years, and right now I do 3 conference calls a week. I have something called messageday.net. People get excerpts of these messages. The voice that was talking to me just said the name they used to identify themselves was the Council of Elohim. I Googled the word Elohim. I came up with the creator of this realm, the name for God in the Old Testament, the voice that the Mormons call God. And I asked them, excuse me, are you the same Elohim? And they said, we're part of the same. And I said, why are you talking to me? And they said, you're like a cosmic midwife. You know how to bring these things out. You don't have ego about it. So that's how it all started. And I don't tell people to believe anything. I say, go to my website. There's a huge amount of free stuff to read. Read their words. Read the comments of people who are quite intelligent that have studied my material, because I've asked so many questions about how the universe works, and they've answered me. And it's making a difference for a lot of people. So my website is messageaday.net, and thanks for listening.
Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you too.
Nice meeting you. See ya.
See ya.